Let's get right into this, courtesy of ESPN. Myles Garrett modified language in contract. The Cleveland Browns and reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, have agreed to modified language on his contract that became official on Tuesday, per league sources. Garrett's contract previously called for his option bonuses in 2026, 2027, and 2028 to be exercised by the 15th day of the league year. In the amended terms, the date has been pushed back to 7 days before the regular season each year.
When Myles Garrett gave up his own money, it wasn't just sacrifice. Let's get right into this, courtesy of ESPN. So, don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's begin. This wasn't a move. This was a message. And if you're really paying attention, I mean really watching what just happened, you know this goes way deeper than money. Because guys like Myles Garrett don't just wake up one morning and decide to give something back. Not when you're the best defender in football. Not when you've got all the leverage. Not when the league already owes you everything. No, superstars don't sacrifice. Superstars take. That's how this league works. So when a defensive player of the year, a guy who could have squeezed every last dollar out of his contract, instead chooses to restructure it, you gotta stop and ask yourself one simple question. Why? Why now? Why would the most dominant player on the Cleveland Browns suddenly decide, you know what? Let me step back so this team can move forward? Because this wasn't pressure. This wasn't front office politics. This wasn't some behind-the-scenes negotiation forcing his hand. This was a decision, a calculated one. And decisions like that don't come from hope. They come from belief, real belief. The kind of belief you only get when you've seen something up close, something the rest of the world hasn't fully caught on to yet. And that's where this story flips, because this isn't just about Myles Garrett. This is about what he sees coming. This is about Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, I said it, because players don't give up money for potential. They don't sacrifice for maybe. They don't restructure their future for a situation they're unsure about. They do it when they know something is building, when they feel it inside that locker room, when they see it in practice, when they recognize that something different is happening, something real, and suddenly all the pieces start connecting. A new offensive system coming in, a young quarterback stepping into the spotlight, a franchise that's been doubted for years, quietly shifting its identity. You start to realize this wasn't random. This wasn't timing. This was alignment. Garrett looked at this entire situation, the coaching, the direction, the energy around this team, and he made a decision most players wouldn't dare make. He bet on it. He bet on the future. He bet on Shedeur. And that right there, that changes everything. Because when the best player in your organization makes that kind of move, it sends a message through the locker room. It sends a message to the front office. And more importantly, it sends a message to the entire NFL. Something is coming, and not everybody is ready for it. This wasn't generosity. This was a warning shot. The pressure is real, but so is the opportunity. And this right here, this is where everything starts to get uncomfortable. Because now we're not just talking about potential anymore. We're talking about expectations. Let's be honest for a second. Shedeur Sanders isn't walking into some quiet situation where nobody's watching. This isn't a low-stakes rebuild. This isn't sit for 2 years and learn. No, this is Cleveland. This is a franchise starving for stability at quarterback, throwing a spotlight on a young guy and basically saying it's your time. And that comes with pressure most rookies never truly understand until they're in it. Because look at where he stands right now. Depth chart battles, media narratives, constant comparisons. Every throw in camp gets analyzed. Every mistake gets amplified. One day, he's the future. The next day, he's not ready. We've seen this before. We've seen talented young quarterbacks get dropped into situations where everything around them is broken, bad protection, no weapons, confused coaching, and then the league turns around and calls them a bust. Think about it. How many careers ended before they even had a real chance? But here's where this situation feels different. And I mean really different. Because for the first time in a long time, the Cleveland Browns might actually be doing this the right way. And that's not something I say lightly. You've got an offensive system coming in that's designed to help a quarterback grow, not just survive. You've got a front office that's actively trying to build around him instead of throwing him out there alone. And now, because of what Myles Garrett just did, you've got real flexibility to go get weapons, to fix protection, to actually give this kid a fighting chance. That matters. That changes everything. Because talent was never the question with Shedeur. The question was always, what kind of situation is he stepping into? And now, suddenly, that situation looks a whole lot stronger. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. When everything around you starts to get better, when the organization is backing you, when the locker room believes, when the front office is making moves specifically to support you, you lose something. You lose the excuse. Now there's no hiding. Now it's not about what you could be. It's about what you are. And that's where the pressure hits different. Because Browns fans, they've been here before. They've heard the promises. They've believed in the next guy. They've watched it fall apart. Over and over again. So yeah, there's hope right now. But it's cautious hope. It's that feeling where you want to believe, but you're waiting for something to go wrong. And that tension, that's what makes this moment so dangerous. Because if Shedeur delivers, everything changes. But if he doesn't, it's just another chapter in a story Cleveland fans are tired of living. And that's why this season, this opportunity, it's not just big, it's everything. And the real question is, when the moment finally hits, is he ready for it? The doubters are loud, and honestly, they're not wrong. And I know that's not what people want to hear right now, especially with all this momentum building. But if we're going to keep this real, really real, we've got to look at both sides of this story. Because for all the hype around Shedeur Sanders, for all the belief, all the excitement, all the energy, there are still questions. Big ones. He hasn't proven it at the NFL level. Not yet. And that matters. Because this league, it's different. Faster, smarter, more unforgiving than anything he's seen before. Windows close quicker. Defenses disguise everything. Mistakes don't just cost you yards, they cost you games. And right now, there are people watching this situation saying, we've seen this before. A young quarterback comes in with hype. The media builds him up. Fans start believing. And then reality hits. Hard. There are analysts out there questioning everything his arm strength at the next level. How he handles pressure in collapsing pockets. Whether his play style translates when the speed of the game doubles overnight. They're asking about durability. They're asking about consistency. They're asking if he can adapt when things stop going his way. And those questions? They're fair. But this isn't just about Shedeur. This is where it gets heavier. Because this is Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns don't just carry expectations, they carry history. A history of quarterbacks who were supposed to be the guy. A history of talent that never reached its ceiling. A history of moments that looked promising. Until they weren't. We've seen this story before. And it didn't end well. That's why the fan base feels split right now. On one side, you've got belief, real belief. People who see the talent, the confidence, the leadership, and say, this is different. This time, it's real. But on the other side, you've got scars. You've got fans who've been through this cycle too many times to jump in all the way again. They're watching, but they're holding back. They're hoping, but they're bracing. And that tension, that's where this whole situation lives right now. Because this isn't just about whether Shedeur is talented. It's not even just about whether he succeeds. This is bigger than that. This is about whether Cleveland as an organization can finally break its own cycle. Can they actually develop a quarterback? Can they actually build something sustainable? Can they finally turn belief into reality? Because if they can't, if this ends the same way the others did, then this won't just be another failed season. It won't just be another name added to the list. It'll be something worse. It'll be proof that no matter how much talent you bring in, nothing really changed. And that's the pressure hanging over everything right now. Because if this fails, it's not just disappointment. It's another wasted opportunity. Something is changing inside that locker room. And you can feel it. Not on paper, not in headlines, not in stat sheets. You feel it in the way a team moves, in the way players talk, in the way energy shifts when belief becomes real. Because what Myles Garrett just did, that doesn't stay on a contract. That travels. That echoes through the entire building. That's leadership. Real leadership. Not the kind where you stand in front of a camera and say the right things. I'm talking about the kind where you show it, where you sacrifice something that actually matters to you so everybody else understands what time it is. And when a guy like Garrett, the face of your defense, one of the most dominant players in the league, makes that kind of move, veterans notice. Young players notice. Everybody in that locker room sits up a little straighter because now the message is clear. This isn't about individuals anymore. This is about building something. This is how contenders are built. Not just talent, but sacrifice. And that's where this whole thing starts to flip. Because now you've got a locker room where the tone is being set from the top, where the best player on the team is saying, I'm all in. And when that happens, other guys start buying in too. You start seeing it in training camp. Extra reps, more communication, players pushing each other instead of just going through the motions. That's culture. That's how it starts. And now think about this from Shedeur Sanders' perspective. You're a young quarterback walking into that environment. You're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to earn respect. And before you even take your first real snap, the best player on your team just made a sacrifice to help you succeed. Think about what that does mentally. That's not pressure. That's fuel. That's belief being handed to you before you even have to earn it. And when a team believes in you like that, you don't just play. You rise. We've seen it before. We've seen quarterbacks take that leap when everything around them finally aligns, when the system fits, the locker room supports them, and the organization actually commits to their growth. And suddenly, things that used to look hard, they start looking natural. Reads get quicker. Confidence gets louder. Leadership starts showing up in real time. And that's what this moment feels like. It feels like alignment. Front office, locker room, coaching staff, all moving in the same direction. And that's rare, especially for the Cleveland Browns. But now you're starting to see chemistry build. You're starting to see trust form. You're starting to see a team that isn't just hoping to win, but preparing to. And when that shift happens, everything changes. Because this is where careers change. This is where stories flip. If this works, this changes everything. I'm not talking about a good season. I'm not talking about sneaking into the playoffs or winning a couple games and calling it progress. I'm talking about a complete shift, a full rewrite of what the Cleveland Browns are and what they've been for years. Because think about what's sitting right in front of us. You've got a young quarterback in Shedeur Sanders stepping into the biggest moment of his career with talent, confidence, and now, real support behind him. You've got an elite defense led by Myles Garrett, not just dominating on the field, but setting the tone off it. You've got a front office finally making moves that actually align with winning. And if all of that clicks, if it all comes together at the right time, the league is not ready for what this could become. I'm serious, because we've seen this before, not in Cleveland, but across the league. A young quarterback steps into the right system, with the right belief, with the right pieces around him, and suddenly, everything explodes. Confidence turns into production. Production turns into wins. Wins turn into momentum. And momentum? That's when things get dangerous. That's when teams go from interesting to contender real fast. And that's the path sitting right here in front of Shedeur. A breakout season. A statement year. The moment where everybody who doubted has to sit back and say, yeah, we missed that one. Because this is real. This is real. This is real. And you can feel it building. But let me talk to you directly for a second, not as a commentator, but as someone who's watched this league long enough to recognize when something different is happening. Moments like this, they don't come around often. This isn't just another season. This isn't just another wait-and-see situation. This is a turning point for the players, for the fans, for the entire identity of this franchise. This is where you decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be the same Browns we've seen for years? Or are you finally going to become something real? Because everything is right there. The belief, the leadership, the opportunity. It's all in place. But here's the truth. Nobody can ignore. If they don't capitalize on this, if they don't take advantage of what's been created here, it's a disaster. Not just a bad season, a wasted moment. A missed window. Another what could have been added to a history full of them. And that's why this matters so much. Because the opportunity is real, but so is the risk. And now, it all comes down to one thing. Execution. Because sometimes, all it takes is one decision, one moment, one sacrifice to change the future of an entire franchise.